What's up, guys? Good morning. It is Wednesday in the middle of the week. Obviously we've hit midweek again. So a lot of people talking about. I've seen that. Obviously, I wanted to do another video. It relates to one I did yesterday. I was talking about Johnathan, joly. And I was saying about how I've seen obviously a lot of TikTok videos. Recently of people actually talking about Johnathan and a lot of the creepy things that he's doing. And I think at the end of the day, I think as I said yesterday, I think it's a good thing that the creepy things that he's doing are starting to get some attention. And people are starting to kind of wake up and see him, for him what he really is. People are starting to wake up and see and realize that he is somewhat of a pervert and child predator, and I mean that's something that's been very clearly obvious for a very long time. The thing is with Jonathan, there is a reason why he does what he does. It's called rage baiting. He does things like that because I mean he's someone who thrives off of controversy, and he knows that him using these thumbnails is a hot topic of controversy. I think a lot of people that I think there are a lot of people who don't necessarily agree with the fact that he's constantly using thumbnails like that. And I think it's not wrong for people to disagree with that, and for people to have, an issue or a problem with the fact that he's using these kind of thumbnails every time he uploads a video. You know, and this is why people are taking issue with it. I think it's so much of an issue with it because it's every video now, like every video he uploads has one of these kind of weird ass thumbnails. He's got his daughters in the thumbnails with their mouths and legs wide open and things like that, and it's just really disgusting, to be honest. I mean, as I said, before, it is bad enough that he has Edie and Amelia in the thumbnails like that, but the fact that he has Alessia in the thumbnails like that as well, and she's only 8 years old, makes things even worse. It's like, why would you need? It's like, why does he need to have his 8-year-old daughter in thumbnails with her mouth and legs wide open? I was like, how can people look at that and not see, and not see anything wrong in that? How can people look at that and think that's normal? How can people look at the thumbnails that he's using and actually think that it's okay and acceptable for him to be using thumbnails like that? I think that there's a lot of anger not only towards him but towards Anna as well, because of the fact that she's seemingly so okay with a lot of the things that he's doing. She seemingly doesn't have any sort of a problem or an issue with what he's doing, and to me that is kind of weird. The fact that he's doing all of these things that he's doing, and Anna just doesn't have a problem with that. Anna seems to be absolutely fine with that. It's just really, just really bizarre, to be honest. Um, as I said, I'm glad that people are starting to, the things that he's doing are starting to get a lot of attention. I mean, I was looking at the TikTok videos, and the comment sections are basically just all comments where people are voicing their concerns, saying that something's not right about him, you know, saying that he's a creep, which is all true. Because at the end of the day, he is a massive creep. And I know, and I don't think anybody would ever convince me otherwise. Um, it's just ridiculous, the fact that he's doing all of these things that he's doing, and Anna's just seemingly so okay with that. She doesn't have a problem with what he's doing. She's fine with that. I mean, he does look at it and he does think, well, why is she so okay with that? Why does she not have a problem with these things that he's doing? Because the things that he's doing are extremely inappropriate. I mean, again, Anna's probably just as bad. I mean, obviously, she uploaded that video to Instagram, TikTok the other night when she was doing an interview with Alessia, and she had Alessia in the video wearing, in a bra top and things like that. And again, as I said yesterday, I don't really think it's appropriate to be showing kids in videos wearing bra tops and crop tops and things like that. You know, especially 8 years old. When they shouldn't be showing. They shouldn't. I just feel like they shouldn't be showing their child in videos wearing bra tops, crop tops, all that sort of thing. It's just not appropriate for me to be showing your child like that on the internet. It's not something I would want to do. You know, it's not something that any decent parent would do. At the end of the day, most decent parents do give a damn about the safety of their kids. They don't, they don't care about child safety. That is the problem. This is the thing. Both Johnathan and Anna have both been warned about the dangers that they are exposing and subjecting their kids to. But neither of them give a shit about the dangers that they are exposing and subjecting their kids to. And they never have given a damn about that. You know, it's just so bad. Like, I mean, yeah, it's bad, but at least Chris isn't constantly using the sort of thumbnails that Jono uses. Because I think again, if this was something that Chris Ingham was doing constantly, if he was constantly opening, using thumbnails where his daughters were behind her, had their mouths and legs wide open in the thumbnails, I think, um, people would be raising a lot of red flags. But, I mean, you can't blame people for being concerned about what he's doing and for feeling that, or for having that opinion that what he's doing just isn't appropriate. As we all know it's not, we all know that what he's doing isn't appropriate and isn't okay. And he shouldn't be doing what he's doing. People won't convince me otherwise at the end of the day that he. At the end, this is the thing. I've said this many times, and I'll keep saying it. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly. He knows exactly what he's doing, and he's known that for a very long time. I feel like the only sort of positive thing that I could say about them is that at least there's not so much of a focus on Edie being trans now, because I remember there used to be a hell of a lot of focus on that. That did seem to be the main kind of focus point of a lot of the videos that Johnathan would upload on his channel, was the fact that Edie was trans. That felt like it was always the main focus point. And in a way, I'm kind of glad that it's not really the sort of main focus point anymore. They've sort of shifted their focus away from that. But unfortunately, it seems that Johnathan's now gone down that route of using his kids as pedo handy, which is basically what he's doing. He's basically pedo baiting his kids. And I don't get how people are unable to see that, because it's so clear to see what he's doing. It's so blatantly obvious what he's doing, and I don't think it's completely wrong. I don't think it's completely bad for people to have that opinion. I think it's pretty fair for people to have the opinion that what he's doing is not is not okay and acceptable. It's like, you can't blame anyone for being concerned about what he's doing and for thinking that what he's doing is not okay. It's that simple. He deserves to have his name dragged through the mud. I mean, you think about it. As I've said before, like, how many times were they warned by people not to show the school logo or name of his school in the videos, and they continue to do that? They were told so many times to blur out the school logo and blur out the name of the school in their videos so that people can see that. But they kept uploading videos and they were showing the school logo and name of the school completely unblurred. even older people have warned them time and time and time and time again to blur that out in their videos so that people, because people don't need to know that information. you know, it's gotten to the point where there's so many complete random strangers on the internet who know exactly where those kids were going to school. And that's because of what they were choosing. That's because of what they were choosing to share online. You know, the problem with Anna and Johnathan is that they've never really heard about the fact that what they're showing online or what they're showing on the internet, could be putting his safety, could be putting his in danger, or could be putting his safety at risk. They've never heard about that, and this is the problem here. They need to stop and think about the fact that sometimes the things that they're showing on the internet, or the way they're putting kids out there on the internet, will put their kids in danger or put their kids' safety at risk. But then they never stop to really think about that. They never stopped to. They've never stopped to think about the dangers that the dangers they're exposing and subjecting it kids to. As I said, they've been warned multiple times about that, but they just don't give a fucking shit. And they're not exactly proving anyone wrong on that. If Johnathan gave a damn about about the dangers he was exposing and subjecting his kids to, I'm pretty sure he wouldn't be using the sort of thumbnails that he uses for every video he uploads on YouTube. How can people not look at those thumbnails and think that those thumbnails raise some pretty serious red flags? As I think they do. You can't look at those thumbnails and think, oh, those thumbnails are completely fine, there's nothing wrong with them. How can anyone do that? How can anyone look at the thumbnails he's using and think, well, there's nothing wrong with that, that's absolutely fine? How is that not raising some serious fucking red flags for people? There was nothing right about the thumbnails he's using. There's nothing right about what he's doing. There's nothing okay or acceptable about the way that he's choosing to put his children out there on the internet. What he's doing is completely and utterly wrong. And he deserves to be called out for that 110%. And so does Anna. She deserves to be called out for the fact that she's so okay with the things that he's doing. This is the weirdest part about it. Yeah, what he's doing is pretty bad. And we all know that what he's doing is pretty bad. But the fact that she's so okay, the fact that she is the mother, is so okay with what he's doing and doesn't have a problem with that, makes the situation 10 times worse. It makes the gravity of the situation and the enormity of the situation 10 times worse. The fact that, you've got his father doing all of these things that he's doing, and the mother doesn't have a problem with that. The mother's absolutely fine with that. Like, what the hell is going on there? Why is she so okay with that? Why is she so okay with the fact that her husband is using his fucking creepy ass thumbnails every time he uploads a video? The best way to describe the thumbnails would be inappropriate, disgusting, disturbing. I can't look at it's got to the point now where I can't look at the thumbnails that Johnathan uses without feeling extremely sick. And it makes me extremely sick to think, especially when you think about why he's using these thumbnails and what his intentions are, what his reasons are for using these thumbnails for his videos. This is what people need to wake up and realise. People need to wake up and actually start realising why he uses these thumbnails, what he uses them for, what his reasons are for using them. We all know what his reasons are. We all know what his intentions are. It's very clear to see that. And I was going to convince me otherwise that he doesn't know what he's doing. He absolutely does. I was so glad that there have been so many videos posted about him on TikTok recently. I mean, I know people talk a lot about the family fizz. I mean, I wouldn't say that they're massively controversial, but they are exploiting it. It's fair enough, and that has to be said. They're another. They're another family, but another example of a family where the mother and father, where Georgie and Darren wouldn't have it, wouldn't have anything, wouldn't have what they have if it wasn't for their kids. You know, and it's the same goes for people like the Honey Jolies, the Inhams, the Sullivans, the Radfords. They wouldn't have any of what they have now if it wasn't for their, well, most of what they have now if it wasn't for their kids. You know, that same statement had been made for a lot of family vlogging channels, is the parents wouldn't have what they have if it wasn't for their kids. The kids are the only reason for the parents' success at the end of the day. You know, and the Honey Jolies are a prime example. Edie, Amelia, Alessia and Andrea are the only reason for Johnathan and Anna's success. Those kids have been, they're basically being treated like slaves. They're being treated like performing monkeys and cash cows. That's how Johnathan and Anna treat them, and have always treated them. You know, and it's sad to think about it, but it's true. You know, we all know that neither of them are as innocent as they're made out to be. And Johnathan Joly has proven to a lot of people, that he's not as innocent as he's made out to be. I mean, I am feeling like I want to report them because I think someone needs to. You know, I think it has gotten to the point where he needs to be reported to the authorities. I think there's no other choice. Because he ain't gonna listen to anyone else if people tell him not to do something. He's just gonna keep on doing it. So the only option is to report him to the authorities. Because there's no point reporting what he's doing to YouTube, because YouTube don't give a shit. They won't see anything wrong in the thumbnails he's using. And I kind of feel like the authorities would be the same thing. Like, if you voiced your concerns about the thumbnails that he's using, they probably wouldn't see them as inappropriate. They would probably, they would probably say that you were the sicko for the way that you're looking at the thumbnails. But I don't think that this has anything to do with the fact that, people are looking at the thumbnails in an inappropriate way. I don't think anyone's doing that. I don't think anybody, is looking at the thumbnails in a way that they should, in a way they don't need to be looking at them. And, it's just a ridiculous situation. It really is. Like, I honestly don't know what to say at this point. But yeah, I am kind of glad that that so many people are doing videos talking about Johnathan. I have called Anna out multiple times on TikTok. I've been blocked, basically, for having a go at her over the fact that, she's not putting a stop to the things that Johnathan is doing. She's so okay with that. It's like, I think that's that's the weirdest thing about it, and the one thing that everyone's kind of questioning is, why is Anna so okay with that? That's a question that everybody has. And you can't blame people for the fact that they are questioning that, for the fact that they're looking at this and thinking, well, why is Anna so okay with the things that Johnathan is doing? Because realistically, she shouldn't be so okay with that. It shouldn't be a case where she doesn't have a problem with what he's doing. She should have a problem with it. She's their mother. She should be putting a stop to what he's doing, but she's not. She's basically enabling him to do what he's to continue doing what he's doing. And there's people that are constantly defending him are doing that as well. People need to stop defending him, because the more people defend him, the more he'll keep on doing things like this, as he knows that people will defend him even when he's doing things that are so bad and so damn inappropriate. I said my piece, and I hope you enjoyed this video anyway. I'll see you for another video this afternoon, maybe. Have an awesome day, and I'll catch you all later. Bye bye.